Hi and welcome to Beyond the Racing Line, the Formula 1 podcast by fans, for fans. Finally, we are back after the huge Melbourne Grand Prix, Australian Grand Prix here in Melbourne. We were in attendance in the paddock, and then we had a wonderful time. And then, unfortunately, on the day that I got home, I realised that I'd picked up the spicy cough from the Grand Prix, and so it delayed recording of all of our fun that we had over that weekend. But I am finally back in the Beyond the Racing Line headquarters with the one and only Tristan. How are you, mate?
Hello, mate. How you going? Nice to be back. Feels like forever, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It does feel like forever. We might just move that microphone down a little bit. There you go. Yeah, it does. It feels like a long time ago that we were there. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I reckon it was my favourite in attendance Grand Prix.
Oh, by a mile it was.
It was, yeah, it was. I'm not sure what it was. It might have been the result, but it was, yeah, it was. There was a really, particularly on race day, it felt like there was a really great feel to the whole event. And it was one that I've really, really enjoyed. In our episode, we will have a few reflections on being in the paddock, because it is a beautiful privilege that we get, and we'll get through some a bit of a race review. Even though it is running very, very late, we'll definitely do some previewing of the next race, but we'll have all the other goodies like F1.5, little chat about F1.5, because that's going to be ready for it. It's going to be big soon. And then, and all the other goodies like fantasy and whatnot. So, as we get into it, as we always do though, our opening question is a good one for the Australian Grand Prix. And it comes from Kingsley again. Kingsley is leading the opening questions.
We had one from anyone else yet?
I've got a couple in the bank,
okay,
but
good.
Kingsley manages to make them topical, which is his secret recipe for getting his question in.
I like that.
And he sent it to me a long time ago too, but he's had this one up his sleeve for a little while. So, 4 years ago, the F1 circus came to a screaming halt due to COVID in the 2020 Oz race.
Yep.
What's your best or worst lockdown purchase that you still have?
Best or worst lockdown purchase?
So best or worst lockdown purchase that you still have. Now, I don't really still have these things, but when it all hit, I got real proactive and I ordered a bunch of things online, like home improvement things. So I added a bin slide, I added some shelving into a room, I did some things outside, and in the first 2 weeks, like once everything arrived, and I got them up, and I had the most productive first couple of weeks of lockdown here in Australia.
Yep.
And then from there, I pretty much did nothing the whole rest of the time. No other great improvements to the house. Now, that's in the old house, and I was just thinking, I don't know if I've got any other purchases that happened through lockdown that I still have. I think everything was sort of just home improvement stuff. If you talk to my wife, she was buying things every day. What are you? What did you buy?
Look, I'm going to just flat out just say nothing, because I don't know. I can't remember that far back, because it was like how many years ago?
It feels like forever ago.
Yeah, and I'm not an avid online shopper at all.
Well,
like for anything really.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
My mini helmets I buy.
I was going to say, you've got quite a bit of F1 stuff.
That's like 2 per year.
You got quite a bit of F1 stuff.
Yeah, but that's about it. Like nothing. Yeah,
I think.
Nah.
You one of my mates. We had the complete opposite start to COVID.
Yep.
Because I had kids and he didn't.
Yeah.
And so his first purchase, in fact, it might have been like, remember when it was announced and we knew we were going into lockdown, he went and bought a PlayStation.
Yeah,
he went and bought the F1.
Awesome.
He went and bought the F1 game.
Yes, yeah.
So his first month of lockdown was just like the best thing in the world. He was chilling out on the PlayStation, he was clocking F1, and I was, taking the kids for a walk in the bush. In saying that, I actually really loved all those moments, but yeah, it was a very different time. I was entertaining kids and teaching online, and he was doing a little bit of teaching online and then mastering Formula 1 on the PlayStation. Yeah, so that was certainly the right way to do it.
Yeah, I like that.
Speaking of purchases, what do you think? Dr. Auto Art is
now
I said officially
when
up.
I came in. Yeah.
In the headquarters. We need to get a photo of it.
We do for Chris and send it off. They look great. Your frames look nice.
Yep.
I love your Fernando one.
In beside the Beyond the Racing Line
light box
from All Signs.
It's just coming together, isn't it?
It is coming together slowly.
You're doing a great job.
Do you think we need to paint the wall a different colour? And if so, what colour?
Yeah.
Because I think we need to paint it, but I don't know what colour.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a tricky one.
I don't know. I feel like a dark green maybe.
A dark green.
Yeah, like a really dark sort of vintage looking green. I think is the way to go there.
I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't be black.
No, it can't be black because everything else is black, so everything will get lost into it.
But then it might.
If we went white, it's just a bit
no,
boring.
white's it's a bit in your face, isn't it? Yeah. I feel like a dark green it'd go well.
Like an old
like
British
a real
racing
sort
green.
of like a real retro looking green that you have. Like my mum has that in some of her rooms, and like a burgundy colour. We have a lounge room at home. It's nearly all burgundy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm okay with that because I grew up with that. So.
Yeah.
I think a green. I don't know. A black might look alright.
Navy. Could we go dark blue?
No, I don't think that'd work.
Yeah,
we'll have to try it. You can get like little AI generators that sort of you take a photo of a room and then you take it in and like color match it.
I think you can do it on.
Maybe that's what you need to do. Yeah, maybe we can do that. Maybe we'll do that throughout the episode and just sort of color match. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's coming along.
It looks great. You've done a great job.
We got a few more to go up and then TV to go up. And
yep.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be on track. But anyway, let's talk Melbourne Grand Prix. So we were fortunate enough to have paddock passes or media passes that get you entry to the paddock and the media centre and the pit lane, and all those wonderful things.
All the wonderful places that we get to go.
Yeah, and all the places that you wish you could go when you're watching on TV.
Yep.
We're fortunate enough to be in the position to be able to get into those areas throughout the Grand Prix. So Thursday, it was a very quiet Thursday. In the past, Thursdays, when Australia was the first race of the season, Thursday was nearly the busiest day of the lot because everyone's coming to the first race. So media day is off its head. Everyone's getting photos with their helmets.
All exciting.
There seems to be 1,000 interviews going on.
And car launches, like you're seeing them for the first time. The liveries are there.
Yep.
Yeah, really good.
And so, but now that, since Australia has slotted into the third race of the season,
yes,
I think it's sort of become quieter and quieter on the Thursday. There's a few interviews going on, but they're not huge.
And they're hit and miss throughout the day.
Yeah, all the big interviews have sort of happened in the first few parts of the season. There were a few interviews that were happening that showed people were sort of drawn into for different reasons, but Horner didn't put himself up into the press conferences until I think his first one was after one of the sessions, and that was just a really simple interview out the front of a garage, the hospitality, sorry. And so we didn't see a lot of the big names be drawn in as much as what I was sort of expecting. I was expecting a little bit more around that. Probably the main in the press conferences, the main thing that was being driven is transparency in F1 and FIA and all the issues going on there. That was the main one, and the teams weren't really buying into any of it. They weren't really trying to get into it. I think if Lewis Hamilton had been properly interviewed, I think he would have probably given the most out of all this, because I think everyone else was maybe a little bit afraid to go and rock the boat too much, because they want to still be able to work with the FIA, they want to work with FOM, so I feel like lots of teams are feeling like, you know what, this isn't our fight to be had, and they were placing a lot of the emphasis on the media, as in the media, you guys are the ones that want to keep talking about this, so we're just going to let you keep on going because it's got really nothing to do with us, which I thought was a really interesting approach, but yeah, it was what it was. I think I've got a feeling the F1 paddock has had enough of all the drama and the politics going in Formula One at the moment. Yeah,
well, it was sort of like it was a bit of an odd sense within the paddock where you're right. It used to be really, really hectic and busy, but then it was really subdued and pared back, and it sort of felt like that we had a little bit more restrictions on ourselves this year than in previous years as well. And I feel like the Netflix era has also played a part to that as well. I was listening to a few other fans talk on a couple of other forums and a couple of different people that had written about stuff, especially the Grand Prix walk, the driver's parade, all the way down in, where that was suddenly just packed. Like we saw it as we were going in. It was 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 rows back, and it was hectic. And we were leaving. What was the latest that we left on Saturday? I think it was like 8 o'clock or something like that. And it was still 5 rows deep at 8 o'clock when well and truly most people had left. So, yeah, I think that sort of played a part in that too, that while there's a lot more going on for fans, I think activity-wise, access has certainly shrunk.
Yep.
And even a couple of pages that I follow, people say they found it really difficult to get a photo of their driver.
Yep.
Or to get an autograph hat or something like that, which, 5-6 years ago, that was quite easy to do.
Yeah.
You had a little bit more
It was a fence.
access.
It was a fence, and it was a couple of people deep. The fence,
Yep.
and it was a busy place.
And if you got there early enough, you got everything
Yeah.
you needed. I had a friend who used to get his program signed every driver effortlessly.
Yep.
And now, went this year, lucky to get one.
grandstands and stages on
Absolutely,
the drivers' walk.
Absolutely,
It was,
but it was, so I don't know, which I think is a good thing, bad thing. I think we experienced a bit of that Sunday too, where we were sort of stopped at a couple of places where we had been going throughout the weekend. But yeah, I don't know. It can be a good thing, can be a bad thing.
Yep. Another talking point on Thursday was the K-Mag in Jeddah, the off-the-track pass, and then holding up the teams behind them to allow his teammate to get out in front. And so there was a little bit of... there's some questions being asked. Is this really legal? Is this really in the spirit of racing? They weren't necessarily wanting something retrospectively to happen. They were just, let's close this loophole because there was a loophole here. He's picked up penalties as it goes. He's deliberately gone and overtaken everyone and then held everyone up to give his teammate a benefit. And so I thought, while they penalised him his 10 seconds, he'd already had 10 seconds. He didn't care about where he was at. It was all about the team.
That's exactly right.
And it was an interesting move, but I think it's not something that you'd want to see happen too often, where you can get that advantage by overtaking on track. And so the next stage is going to have to be that they're going to start having to look at stop-go penalties or forced return to pits.
Yeah.
And you'll come in through the pits and it must be a drive-through or something like that. And I don't mind that too much. I think there needs to be enough time to be given to give the position back, and if positions have changed behind you, then unfortunately that's just the risk that you and your team are pushing. But if you're overtaking on track, you must give the position back. I think this business of 10 seconds still isn't quite enough. I think you give the position back, and if that means you give a few positions back, then unfortunately that's the way it is. Otherwise it's a drive-through, and that's just the way it has to be. I think is sort of where we're going with that. And I think that's where most teams are sort of in agreement as to where we need to be going with that one. And then probably the last talking point is the Williams. And that probably didn't become a talking point until the Friday.
Well, yeah.
Because...
certainly got us talking.
Because, as we found out, Albon managed to put the Williams into the wall in practice on the Friday, and turns out they didn't have a spare chassis. And it caused all sorts of dramas for that team and all sorts of dramas mainly for his teammate in the end. And so, lots of questions were being asked about, rightio, why is Williams in this position where you're turning up to tracks and you don't have that spare chassis ready to go?
Yeah.
And look, I thought James Vowles he was fairly forthright. He looked a bit sheepish about it all.
He was very firm in his reasons why, and it was almost like, I'm not going to be persuaded to not follow through with this call that I've made.
Yeah. But saying that though, he was also admitting that he made the wrong call.
Yeah,
they'd made the wrong call, and they wouldn't be in this position again, and they would learn from it. But so as if you weren't following along with the weekend, Albon put the car on the wall, damaged the chassis. They decided to then put him in Logan Sargent's car, which meant that Logan couldn't compete in the rest of the weekend. And obviously, that came with all sorts of ramifications around that. Did the team make the right call? And why on earth does Williams not have that spare chassis there? Yeah. And it's likely that spare chassis won't be available for a couple of weekends yet. So China's the earliest. So they're going to be in the same position this weekend. I believe that their fix on Albon's original chassis is on track to get him to the track, but I don't think they're going to have a spare there.
No, and I mean, I can understand the reasons why, that they're looking to be more competitive and invest their time in race results, which is what we've been asking for Williams for a long time. Coming at the cost, though, of your spares, I don't know. An odd thing for it to come at a cost of. But
also, it's also, and this still isn't probably on James Vowles because it's a bigger problem to fix, but it goes back to where on earth has Williams been for so long where they don't have a decent enough production line in place where they can make enough pieces. Like they've had this problem since Claire Williams was in charge, and they didn't get cars to the track on time. They've had this production problem in the team, ingrained in the team for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so I think, why James has turned around certain aspects of the team, I think the bigger one is how is that organisation working, and how can it be improved to make sure that their production line is going to be able to produce enough at the rate that they need. It's a 24 race season. You've sort of got to really lift that production line up, because a couple of big crashes and they could be without any cars in the...
Well, that's it. We go to Japan on Saturday and you put both of them in the wall and then that's it. Like, you're not running, and then, what if Logan puts in the ball? And is it going to be return serves? That if Logan's doing a little bit better job across the weekend, is Alex going to sit it out? Highly unlikely. I think that's the big thing for me, and we talked about that on the weekend, that it's just, while Alex is clearly the better driver... Clearly he's the better driver. He made the error, and then really at the end of the day, no points. Had we have had points, he could probably argue that, that's the right call to make, but still, no points, didn't set qualifying alight. I don't know. I feel like Sargent's been punished for a mistake that he didn't make.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, but it's Formula One, and it's not about being fair.
Yeah.
It is a business, and you've got all the people back at the factory that you've got to be fighting for. I think they definitely made the right call. Alex Albon is head and shoulders performing better than Logan this year and in the past, and I think they had to make that risk. I think they had to take that risk, and as bad as it looked for the team, I think they made the right call. He wasn't that far off the points, but it was certainly, I would have been doing the same thing if I was them. As horrible as it sounds, I certainly would have been doing the same thing as them. Moving forward, qualifying was... We saw the Ferraris looking really strong, didn't we, throughout the weekend, and we thought, maybe they can get this job done. McLaren was sort of showing glimpses as well, and Mercedes, while they were a long way off, showed a few glimpses throughout the qualifying session. And so we thought, there might be something in this. And to compound that, we saw Red Bull really struggling with different aspects of the car throughout all of the practice sessions. Yeah. And so we went into qualifying with quite a lot of hope, didn't we? I don't think we expected a different result. I think we all expected Max, but I think there was that hope in the back of our minds that Ferrari might be able to pull something off.
Yep.
And they were really close to doing that, weren't they? We didn't see Leclerc quite turn it on the same, but we saw Sainz's laps looking really strong, and then he pretty much lost his pole position with the last two corners.
Yeah. Corner 9 and 10 was where he lost it. Which was sort of shown in the data, that having an error into 9 and he was just chasing his tail. But pole was there. Not that it mattered in the end.
No, it did not matter in the end. But it would have been nice to see them get the result on everything. It would have been nice to see they were there on pace at qualifying. They were there in front of Max before he had his issue throughout the race. But yeah, and then when moving forward into the race, we saw the big change up. We saw Ferraris in the strong position, but a couple of laps in, we saw Max Verstappen brakes catch fire. They claim that the brakes were on from the start of the race, which is a strange issue. I haven't heard too much more about the cause of any of that. I usually find out on the Thursday of the next race. They sort of have a bit of a chat about the reasons as to why these things happen. But we saw the big fire, and it was quite dramatic coming down pit lane. Something exploded, and it was a strange atmosphere because we were watching the race for the first time ever in the media centre.
Yes, right on the start-finish line as we were.
Yep, and there was... You wouldn't call it a cheer, but there was a noise of relief of something different about to happen in racing. Yep. Wasn't there? It was... no one was... No, I don't think anyone was disrespectful enough to actually cheer, but it was almost like you beauty, we've got something different to talk about here.
And I think that's a really good point. It wasn't a cheer of Max's failure. It was a cheer of, we're going to see something a little bit different, which we haven't seen for a very, very long time. Yep,
an incredibly strong race from there from Carlos Sainz. So that's the general gist of our weekends. What's something that you took out of? What's something you took out of the being in our position this weekend? Last weekend.
What did I take out of it?
I really, for the first time ever, I really enjoyed the media centre for racing. I mean,
I did too, actually.
There was two reasons for that, because we got this brand new screen. Like the data screen's been good.
Data screens are incredible.
But this data screen was off its head. It had sector zones. It had where cars were on track. We had splits. We had all sorts of things. And it was just, if I could have that every time I'm watching Formula One, I'd have everything I need.
I think it was
I've got
good.
my wife, I've got my kids, I'd have the data screen.
Yeah, I do love being amongst it. And most of the years we're up top, just looking down on pit lane. And there's a lot of action there, even though it's in a straight line as well. But yeah, I probably agree with you there too. Like just being amongst just different people, seeing it from a different perspective, having all that extra stuff that you kind of like having at home too.
Yep.
Because you're right. Like the Sundays, we're very fortunate to where we get to go, but to find a good vantage spot for racing,
the one knock
is the thing.
Yep.
That's the one knock, because we don't have that, which we really shouldn't be complaining about that, because I reckon 100% of our listeners would think, geez, I'll swap you for a race weekend.
But there is something special about smelling the fuel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hearing the screech of the brakes.
Yep.
And being able to just look down on top of garages. It is such a
even being able to see
spot.
Jack doing in the Benetton.
Yep.
Yeah,
out on track.
Out on track on Saturday morning when we got there.
Yep.
It was that was really special, and just being in amongst the fans too. So I think it's really good. You're right. Just having all that extra stuff, like the data screens and things like that too. Yep.
Another thing that I viewed, and I think it was for the F2 race, I witnessed the start finishing officials give a lesson to the checkered flag marshal.
Yeah, right.
The person that was stepping in, I don't even know who that was.
We didn't have anyone famous for the checkered flag.
No, but for F2 they had a guest in.
Okay, we didn't have
and so they taught this person how to wave the flag properly and how to hold it. And I was like, oh, you know what? You don't sort of think about the fact, and I'm doing little practices down in the box to make sure they're getting it right. And it was quite an interesting little
it's all that
little watch, and it went on for about 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, there you go. Well, some real effort does go into these things.
I think we had a marshal, which I like. It's sort of understated, but those people that do all those incredible things around the track on the weekends, just sort of recognising them instead of a celebrity. There were quite a few celebs there.
Yep.
But we didn't see one of those.
How did one of your things that you sort of talked about is the rich, arrogant prick sort of aspect to it?
Yeah.
Felt better?
It did feel better.
I'm with
this
you,
year.
yeah.
So it's sort of, in years gone past, I think the year before.
I think
last year, and there was a moment a couple of years ago with Valtteri and Mercedes, and this is sort of the moment that I always refer back to when I think about this and I criticise just the access that some people have when they don't really appreciate what they're getting access to. As a group of people ran up and took a selfie with Valtteri Bottas, and immediately afterwards were chuckling and laughing, going, "Who the hell is that? I don't even know who it is." And it was at that moment where I just thought, man, you should not be here.
Yep.
And I think the good thing about this year, security ramped up massively this year as compared to years gone by. But what I noticed was the VIP guests and groups were very well contained. So when you were with your group, you got your wander through the paddock, and you got your little bit of a garage tour, and then you were off, and that's it. You're out of there.
Yep.
So while it was quite busy, I mean, Sunday night it's quite busy in there, and Saturday morning, is quite busy for those groups. Saturday afternoon it gets really quiet, and then Sunday during the race it's almost non-existent because everyone's watching it. But yeah, really well contained, little pockets of people going through. Just do your walk, go into the shed, have a look. Thanks, lanyards off.
Yep.
See you later.
Yep.
Which I really liked. I liked that. So they weren't in your face. They weren't running around everywhere. I tell you what, those that did do a few photos and videos, the production value of how much effort goes in to a celebrity. I think I watched one of the Australian news readers. She looked for me. She looked like one of the newsreaders on Channel 9. And she was just walking along pit lane while I was in there looking at the cars. And she had a girl with her with two phones and this little handheld phone device too. And she was instructing her where to walk and what to do for what looked like nothing more than an Instagram video. And I thought, man, oh man, like just the production value to let someone know where you are, enormous. I saw that with George too. on pre-qualifying, where he went from, only saw him twice across the race weekend. We saw him come back from the stewards with Fernando, and we saw him going into the garage and qualifying across from the hospitality unit. But before he went across, 4 or 5 people set up with video cameras and phones and sound mics ready to go just to film him walking into the shed.
Yep.
And that was it. I thought, wow, it's a whole nother level, your social media presence.
Well, and that's it. That's the thing. Like, there's teams, and then there's individuals.
Yep.
Drivers who've got their own crew, and it was. The other thing that we saw was an emergence of YouTubers. I don't know the YouTubers at all. And
I had to look them up.
I understand 100% that. Like, I had question marks because Dude Perfect.
Yep.
60 million subscribers.
Awesome.
I found out since.
Yep. Yeah, I've watched a couple of videos.
They present... That's exactly right. They presented... and I never really know who gets this tyre. So at qualifying, Max got pole.
Yep.
He signs it. But then what happens with that tyre?
You know, it's funny you mention that because Valtteri put a video up on his Instagram reel of him doing an Easter egg hunt in his house. And in his, like I'm going to say, office, he has all his helmets and all his pole tyres.
Oh, there you go. So they keep them.
I'm just under the assumption that they keep them.
The fact that that they sign it, I thought, maybe they give it away to charity.
It might go to charity. But, I don't know. Unless it's a replica that he has. But
so the presenter signs it, and then the winner signs it. And then, anyway, it's, And so Dude Perfect, I was like, you know what, surely Australia, because Dude Perfect is an American crew.
Yep.
They were down in Australia doing a bunch of different stuff as well, and they finished at the Grand Prix.
Yep.
But I was like, surely we've got some Australian people that can be doing these presentations. And I sort of stand by that. But I'll give these guys credit because they're certainly not somebody that I would usually focus on or watch or anything like that. But they behave themselves exactly how celebrities should behave themselves. They are celebrities nowadays. Like, they'll be more popular than lots of celebrities around the world. And they were really approachable. They weren't sort of sticking their noses up at people and hiding in the hospitality. They were out and about. Kids were coming up, getting their autographs. They were talking to people. They were having a bit of a clown around.
Yep.
But they weren't being disrespectful about it.
It wasn't like over
It was
the top.
whenever there was a driver and one of the guys wanted to get a high five or a fist pump from every driver.
Yep.
And he was missing Lewis, but the way he would go about doing it, and they would have to film them all because it was obviously for one of his videos.
Yep.
But the way he'd go about doing it is he was incredibly polite. He wasn't being rude about it or anything like that. He was sort of explaining it, and all the drivers were like, "Yeah, great, no worries." And so the way that they approached it was good fun. They were approachable. They knew why they were there, so they were happy to be spoken to.
Reasonably
by
knowledgeable.
Brundle.
Like had some.
They had some understanding about it, and they showed all those good things about celebrities being at Formula One. And sometimes we question as why are they there? Well, they were the perfect point of being there. They weren't F1 aficionados by any stretch of the imagination, but they were really keen to find out more. They were really open to talking to people, which it just does my head in that celebrities turn up to races, want to go on the grid, and then don't want to talk to anyone.
Yep.
What's the point of being there?
100%.
You're not adding anything to the exposure of Formula One or to yourself if you're not going to talk to people.
Yep, correct.
And so, I just thought, for someone I would usually think, get out of town, they were really great. So, I spent a bit of time watching those boys floating around, and there was a few others that I'd have to go and look up and all that sort of stuff. And there was a boxer in there that was really great as well. So, it was. I thought they did a really great job this year. Let's talk racing.
Okay.
Let's talk racing. Carlos Sainz, race review, Melbourne Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz winning the race and Charles Leclerc coming in second. Charles, you would usually... In the past, we would have usually said, right, if Max ain't winning, Charles is our best chance. Carlos has now stepped himself in there. We saw the superb victory, one of the best wins I've seen in a very long time at Singapore last year.
Absolutely.
This one was a good one as well. It was straight onto it. There was pressure on Max from the start. And I think that we've seen a real coming to life of Carlos Sainz. Thoughts on his win?
Couldn't agree more. It was a loved win. It was something that everyone... I think it made it more impressive, the fact that he's going. I feel like the more success he has, the more it's going to be celebrated and the more that we're going to appreciate it, because it starts to raise that question of, should he be going? Why is he going? is he going to eventually end up going?
And he's a very popular member of the driving fraternity.
I think he's a popular driver amongst fans.
But all the drivers seem to love him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You look at the challenges he went through in the fortnight beforehand as well. So I think everything just came together, and you're right, he's starting to build momentum, and it's that narrative, the fact that he is no longer going to be at Ferrari, which is going to magnify all of his success from here on in. Like, if he finishes second in Japan, I think every time he finishes ahead of Charles, we're going to start asking that question. Why is he going? Like, I know Lewis is Lewis, and
7-time world champion.
The brand of Lewis with Ferrari is a marriage made in heaven.
Yep.
And if Carlos is starting to finish 5th and 6th and 7th, then you're going, yeah, fair enough, like it's worth the gamble. But this is your only race winner in Ferrari for the last 2 years.
Young Dan Ricciardo, if there was a win to be had, he was the man that would step up and take that win.
Seb was the same.
And I feel like while Carlos isn't a young driver, he's a mature driver. He's not an old driver, but he's a mature driver.
Yep.
He seems to have stepped into that situation where if there's a weakness, I'm going to step it up because I know there's a real chance of me picking something up here.
Yep.
And we saw him on it pretty much throughout the weekend. In practice, he was doing what he needed to be doing. Qualifying, like we said, he was looking on it. He was looking really strong. And it was just a bit of I think you had to look after the tyres throughout the whole lap. And I'm not sure that for that last one, I think there were little mistakes. But he was very close. He was putting the pressure on to the point where it was actually a surprise to see that Max actually picked up the pole. I don't think we expected he was actually going to get it in the end. And then in the race, pressure was on right from the get-go. And we were probably always going to see that problem from Max, but he was willing to put that pressure on. And so, I thought it was a really fine drive from him. Should Charles Leclerc be questioning why he isn't performing quite as well?
I don't think he has to. I don't think anyone's asking him any questions.
Do you think that there should be some questions around why isn't he the one that's picking up these extras?
No, I don't. No.
Really? Why not?
I think Charles has still been incredibly serviceable and very valuable.
I'm not talking about sacking.
No, I just don't think. I think that everything he's doing at the moment is still okay. Like, he's really not doing anything wrong. We know he had a couple of issues.
He's missed 2 race wins.
Yeah, I think he's just been outdriven.
And so
I really do.
And so, in the world of Formula One, surely that means that you need to be starting to question, right? What is it that isn't working for me?
I don't think alarm bells are ready to be rung just yet. Ask me in 3 weeks' time, and if he's been outraced 3 more times, then yes, I could certainly sit there and ask those questions with you.
Yeah, for me, I think he just, I don't think there should be sackings going on or anything like that. No. There needs to be a really clear input into, what is it that I'm not getting out of this car, and how do we start making that happen? Because it's probably 2 race wins that he has given away. Not given away, but he should have been in the hunt for this race win, and he wasn't really in the hunt. I mean, they probably went team orders in the end just to bring everyone home, but
yes,
it's
absolutely.
It's a big question, and there will be pressure when Hamilton comes into this team, because all of a sudden, oh man, this was supposed to be Charles' team. He's being outdriven just a little bit at the moment.
Yeah.
And the big man coming in is going to take away that spotlight. He's going to want to be ready for that. And so it'll be an interesting watch when they start racing together. But I'm with you. I think the next couple of races are going to be really important for Charles to just show why they've chosen him.
Is this a very Ferrari thing to do, that your house is in order, your car is starting to perform, and
we're going to mix things up a bit?
We're going to mix it up by getting our driver combination that is working really well, and for absolutely no reason. Well, not for absolutely no reason, but for really no logical reason now. We're going to dump one. And then that man's going to go on and be the next race winner. It's a very Ferrari thing to do.
It is.
It's starting to come together.
Yep.
But let's
change it up.
Let's change it by going Sainz, you're out.
Yep.
I don't know, and I think it's not we were saying this across the race weekend, it's not a question of Sainz. Is he good enough? Looking at Lewis running around in 8th and 9th at the moment, and DNFing in Australia too. I mean, we know technical problem, but 8th and 9th at the moment, like, he's not setting the world on fire. Like, right now, if you're a team boss and you've got Lewis in front of you ready to go and you've got Sainz in front of you ready to go, 9 out of 10 are hiring Carlos Sainz right now. Like, they really are. And yeah, Lewis
You have to know Lewis's history.
You do.
To know why he is so desirable. Yep.
But also at the same time, past performance is not
Yep.
an indicator of, like, future performance. Like, right now, just on form alone, right now, almost every person is hiring Sainz over Lewis. They really, really are. I wonder if Fred Vasseur is sitting back at any stage at the moment and just going, I've done the right thing here.
Did you just quote a super ad?
Did I?
Yeah, past performance is not an indicator of future performance.
Is that a thing? I didn't even know that was a thing.
I'm with you, though. I'm with you, 100%. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's all right, you're Fred Vasseur. What's the move what's the move you made? Would you have made the move over the summer?
I don't know.
Over our summer, for those people overseas.
Over
in the off season.
Probably not. You would have waited just to see. Like, you would have waited
Lewis
till
Hamilton becomes available for your team.
There
isn't waiting.
There isn't waiting.
You're making the move.
You don't have a lot of wait time, do you? I mean,
No.
hindsight's a wonderful thing. At the same time, is this Lewis making another great call?
See, over the summer, I say absolutely, you
Yep.
make that move. It's just like, it doesn't really matter how great Sainz is anyway. The other thing is they're quite different driving styles, which is probably why he's picking up these wins at these certain street circuits, because it suits him a little bit better than what it does Charles.
Yep.
And that seems to suit the Ferrari a little bit better. And so it's not necessarily the long term, well, he's going to be good at every track, because it doesn't quite correlate that way all the time.
Yeah.
I think Charles is a bit better on a standard race circuit. Like, for example, I think we will see him perform just as well. Probably, it wasn't even like they're that far apart, really. But yeah,
they really weren't.
you'd expect to sort of see a step up from Charles at a traditional race circuit.
Yep.
It seems that Sainz really likes these sorts of circuits. The bumpy circuit seems to suit him, because Australia's known for being quite bumpy.
And I think it's probably...
Singapore's quite bumpy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of calmness in Ferrari too, that we're not suddenly trying to swap drivers like mid-race and do these bold strategy calls when it's not necessary.
Yep.
You're a 1-2, you're 15 laps from home, you stay there. You're 1-2. We see Red Bull do that in the past, we've seen McLaren do that in the past too. I think it's a little bit of just calmness on the pit wall too.
But, yeah, I can understand 100% why they did it, because Lewis comes with his whole extra business around being Lewis Hamilton.
Yep.
Bring it to Ferrari. If he manages to get a world championship, it'll be one that goes down in absolute history as one of the biggest events in Ferrari's history. And yeah, it'll be something magnificent. But are you making that? If you had to make the call this weekend, oh man, it's a bit hard. It's a lot harder to do this weekend than it was in the summer, isn't it?
Lewis is the big winner out of all of this.
Yeah.
As I was saying, this is another terrific call from Lewis.
It's not yet.
I think it is. I think it's going to be. I really feel like it is, because he's looking at that Mercedes, and they are just further back. Like, I looked at some data and numbers a couple of days ago. They were 0.3 off the pole time this time last year, and they've drifted back to nearly 5, nearly 6. Like, it's getting slower. Maybe it's not getting slower. But everyone around them is getting quicker. And he's looked at that, and for all the comments that Toto has made, he had an article, I think it was in Motorsport, I think, where he said, Lewis needs to he'll be an expert in the Mercedes rear wing in 26, because that's what he's going to be looking at. And I'm thinking, I don't know. Is he, though? I feel like Lewis has seen it, and he knows what is coming. I don't think he knows what's coming with the Ferrari, but he knows what the package is going to be for Mercedes. He's looked at it and just gone, no. It's actually not going to be where it should be. So I haven't got that long left. I'm going to go and do something different.
Lando Norris and the McLaren with Oscar Piastri in 4th. It's a good result for McLaren, wasn't it? I mean, we saw...
Awesome result.
It really was a 4th and 5th, but you've got to be ready to go. If someone's going to drop out, you've got to be ready to go. Lando showed some good pace. Piastri showed some really good pace as well. And yeah, just a good, solid performance. They've moved themselves into that bracket, particularly here in a track that's going to suit them a little bit more. But we've certainly seen themselves, rightio. We were a bit concerned that maybe they were a little bit further back at Bahrain. We knew that track didn't suit them. They improved by Jeddah, and then I think they've improved again at Melbourne. So nice to see them in that sweet spot of the third best team. However, they still managed to beat Perez as well. Thoughts on McLarens?
I was a little bit thrown back at, and it's probably just from our vantage point for where we were, that people were saying that like there was team orders.
There was team orders.
I didn't see that. I must have missed that.
Yeah, no, there was.
Because that left me scratching my head for the race weekend, going, "Hang on, was there?" I thought I was.
Yeah, no, went over the radio. They were on different strategies.
I feel
anyway.
like Oscar was out of sync anyway, and he was regardless of.
So Oscar picked up the position due to them needing to pit him sooner than Lando anyway.
That's right.
And so they made that correction because Lando had some extra speed on him.
Yep.
So they gave Oscar the chance to keep it out, but yeah, in the end he dropped back a little way. He didn't need to push the tyres as hard as what he could have potentially. I would have been interested to see if he had to push. He had a bit of a buffer zone to those behind him, where he didn't really need to push as hard. So I don't know if we quite saw the best of Oscar. I think maybe he backed off a little bit once that Lando sort of took off a little bit. He just went into let's manage these tyres, and it would have been a bit of a learning phase. But I thought it was a good weekend from both, and more improvement from Oscar, and Lando still back on it. One of my favourite clips from the weekend is someone from the crowd yelling out, "Hey Lando, when are you going to win your first race?" And he just gives him the bird. I like that. I like that sort of interaction, but he'll be asking that question all the time as well. Sergio Perez probably went under the radar a little bit for a poor performance.
Yeah, not brilliant, but
Red Bull weren't on it this weekend.
It generally felt that way, didn't it? While Max still had his DNF, you felt like they weren't quite on it yet.
No,
it wasn't.
It wasn't the sure thing. Like I would have loved to have seen the race play out.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Ferrari would have been able to put him under enough pressure as it is, because they weren't comfortable throughout the race weekend. They managed to find some performance for qualifying, but I think it was understood that race pace, Ferrari and McLaren even were better race pace than the Red Bulls, and we saw that with Perez. Now, the Verstappen's factor might have changed things around a little bit, but we didn't see it. Perez, don't know if it was him or if it was a Red Bull problem this weekend, but probably needed to get more out of it. Once again, Max didn't win. Perez should have been there. Agreed?
Absolutely.
But it feels like the heat's gone off him a little bit.
I don't know the heat's gone off him, but I think there's more that we've got our eye on around him at the moment, that he's not the headline act. Yep. Like it's the Ferrari resurgence, it's the continual hope of the McLaren, it's the strong pairings of Lando, and it's Oscar, and it's what is happening with Aston, and
it just so happens
the RBs have dropped off, and then
just so happens to help that Ricciardo's not going so well.
That's right, and just in
there's
amongst
not a great
Perez
deal of belief
doing a lot.
in Yuki being able to sit in a big seat like that.
That's right. Whereas last year, especially towards the back end of the year, the domination was so high, and Dan was doing incredibly well. That we're asking those questions. So I think the narrative is still there, but we've got our eye on other things at the moment.
Yep. And obviously, Max, DNF'd. It's the result that Formula 1 needed. They needed some DNF from Max. He could do with a couple more just to spice up the season for a little bit. Not that we wish him unwell, but it would be nice for him to, hopefully. The question I meant to ask you is Ferrari closer to Red Bull than what we've seen? Have they closed that gap, or is it more of a track specific thing?
I think it is. I think it is closer. I don't think it's as close as what we think it is. Like, I don't think it's a tenth or 2/10, but it's certainly coming down. And it's probably not. I don't think it's a Ferrari strength. I think it's the Red Bull. It's just come back to the pack a little bit. I don't know that the RB20 is as strong as the 19. I wonder.
Well, at the start of the season, they're talking about it being strongest.
Yeah, I wonder if the RB19 is the better chassis than the 20. I just wonder. I look at what Aston did last year. They overdeveloped. I don't know. Did they need to? It's not broke, don't fix it. I don't know. They did have a free hit, and that's incredibly picky. But I don't know. I don't know the 20 is as strong as the 19. To be seen, but yeah, I wonder what would be happening if they just parked the 19 out there again and just went, well, we've won everything. We don't really need to fix anything or do anything different. So they've had a bit of an explore of it, but yeah.
I think we'll find that everyone else has improved.
Yeah, gut feeling tells me that it's not as strong as
I think we'll see him come back out alive this weekend. I'm not too hopeful that Ferrari are going to be winning this weekend, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll, 6th. Tell me more about this.
He's 6th because his teammate got a 20-second penalty, so it's really 7th.
Tell me more about him being so strong. He had a strong weekend.
He did have a good weekend. I think Aston had a good weekend.
Aston had a good weekend. And it was made to look better because there was 2 drivers doing the good things.
That's right, yeah. They're the roller coaster team of the year, aren't they? I feel like it's just strap yourself in and hang on and just, we could turn up to Japan on Sunday and it's going to be 12th and 13th.
Or it might be fighting for pole.
100%. You just don't know what you're going to get at the moment with them. So, like a strong performance from both.
Let's talk like solid weekend from Stroll. Let's not go crazy, but it was a really solid weekend. Let's talk Fernando Alonso. So he was having a good weekend. He wasn't. He was still a fair way off. Was he? Yes, he was behind Perez. But let's talk about the 20-second penalty. Okay, so for those people who missed it, George Russell was following closely behind, charging down Alonso. So he had Alonso in his sights, and it was just a matter of, rightio, can he get him before the end of the race? They were last lap. We found all of a sudden George Russell on his side in the middle of the track, which was a scary position. Did you hear his team radio?
Yes.
There was a really you saw the crash, and it was a big hit.
Yep.
And then he's lying on his side because there was a strange thing that happened where the wheels had sort of all ended up on one side of the car.
Yeah, I mean, Tethers did exactly what they needed to do.
Jumped on the radio and was crying out for red flags. I'm in the little track, red flag, I'm in the little track.
Yes.
And Lance Stroll did come across him really quickly.
He did, yeah.
And he did slow down enough, but it was a little bit of a dangerous situation. And there was a real listening to the radio and watching the video. There was a real anxiety watching that. And you're like, oh yeah, I can understand your fear here. And yeah, he was quite shaken up by that, and he was quite annoyed that they didn't go to red flags at all.
Yeah. And
they didn't go to big enough flags straight away. And obviously they wanted to finish the race under racing conditions and not red flag the end of the race.
Yes.
But he was quite annoyed by that. Thoughts though. So this all came about. It was proven that Fernando Alonso had driven erratically
in inverted commas.
Yeah, in the last few laps, where he had overbraked entering the corner beforehand.
Yep.
And then sped off, and then overbraked again earlier than what he usually would.
Yep. And it's like a 32k deficit.
Yep. So it was quite a significant deficit.
Yep.
And it was decided he'd driven erratically, which had caused George Russell's crash, and so given a 20-second penalty.
Yeah.
I'll let you lead off on this one.
Oh, I'm not buying any of that, and I think it's disgraceful to penalise a driver who, and even in his own words, I'm going to find exactly what he said here, because to do something like that, to recognise that you are under attack, and to make a change to what you're doing across the lap to keep your position is nothing more than good racing.
It's good driver craft.
It's good driver craft, which is what he's well known for, which is what all good drivers are well known for. And to then penalise that because the driver behind you failed to recognise or, take part in what you were trying to do. It dumbfounds me that. Do we have some sort of preconceived idea that when you have found your sweet spot in a corner, for every lap, the expectation is that you enter that corner in the same way? Like, it did not matter what he was doing the first 3 laps on that corner at all. It's his right to enter and to take that corner in the way that he feels necessary, and he didn't do it in a dangerous manner at all.
It wasn't a brake check.
It wasn't a brake check, and that's what it came across as.
For those playing at home, brake check is your head to tail in a line,
slamming your brakes
and you slam your brakes on out of nowhere.
Yep.
And it causes the car behind you to either crash into the back of you or steer off into the wall. And it wasn't that. There was half a second in it, and so I can understand the surprise it hits George. I really can. But if we're going to start penalising drivers for racecraft to finish the race the way that they need to finish the race to win their position, I was ready to jump on Alonso and say, hey, that's a really dirty act. That's outside the rules. And then seeing it, and then thinking about it further, it's just, I'm horrified to think that that's where we've gotten to in racing.
This is his quote. This is from Fernando's Instagram page, and it was also mirrored by Aston Martin as well. So he says, double points for the team and a better race pace than the rest of the weekend allowed us to cross the finish line 6th and 7th. A bit surprised by a penalty at the end of the race regarding how we should approach the corners or how we should drive the race cars. At no point do we want to do anything wrong at these speeds. I believe that without gravel on that corner or on any other corner in the world, we will never be investigated. In F1, with over 20 years of experience, with epic duels like Imola 05-06, Brazil 2023, changing racing lines, sacrificing entry speed to have good exits from corners is part of the art of motorsport.
Couldn't
agree more.
Yep.
We never drive at 100% every race lap and every corner. We save fuel, we save tyres, brakes. So being responsible for not making every lap the same is a bit surprising. Everything that he said there, I couldn't agree with more.
Yep. We see drivers park, and Fernando Alonso springs to mind whenever you think about it. We do see drivers sort of pause on hairpins just to throw the drivers off behind them. We see drivers change lines into corners.
Yep.
And I feel like because George wasn't good enough to deal with the situation, I feel like Alonso's been penalised. And I don't quite get the idea of without gravel there. I'm not sure, like, is he suggesting that he would have just pulled off into the safety? I guess, yeah, but I feel like it's a George problem. I understand it caught him by surprise, but it wasn't horrendous. It wasn't like he stopped. It wasn't, it was just, I don't know. I'm worried if this is something that we're going to start penalising for.
There's a couple of things that George is doing that's starting to turn me off again, because I have not been a huge George fan the whole way through. At the very start, having him shoved down my throat by Sky was a huge turn-off. But I've just noticed that little things like we're having accidents when we shouldn't have accidents. He's very critical all the time when it doesn't go right. Like, there's always something. And I'm just starting to pick up on it. You know, even the red flag. Like, I've crashed, stop the race. Like, I recognise it was a dangerous situation. But then also, I've crashed, I've been brake checked. You know, he had the crash as well in Singapore. I've crashed because Lando hit the wall in front of me. Like, yeah, there's always, I just feel like at the moment, there's a little something all the time, and I think it's just something to watch, because I think I feel like he's frustrated with the Mercedes drive too, that he kind of maybe turned up to this all-conquering silver arrows, and now that he's there, his teammate is now leaving.
Well, he waited through the glory period.
And he's got there, and it's suddenly not what it was when he was sitting on the sidelines, and there must be an air of frustration happening there too. Yeah, I don't know. Just something to watch. I think George needs a really calm weekend this weekend. Is what he needs. I'm not talking race result. He just needs a calm weekend.
Yep. Yep. Just needs to focus on himself a bit.
Yep.
Next one's Yuki Tsunoda in the RB Honda. No, what is it?
RB Visa Cash App.
Visa Cash App.
V-Carb, just a V-Carb.
Yep, but they managed to list them as RB Honda, RB PT on the official results, which is just fantastic. It's just fantastic. Yuki Tsunoda is driving wonderfully well.
He is driving the wheels off that RB.
what's that mean for everything?
It just, honestly, nothing. It really doesn't mean anything. He's just doing an incredible job. Is his 4th season now?
See, for me...
Correct me if I'm wrong on that stat, but I feel like it's 4.
He's been around for a long time, yeah.
And it's just a little bit of maturity, a little bit of experience starting to come together. He's confident in the car and the team, and now we're starting to get some results strong.
See, we were really big on RB being strong this year.
Yes, and we've got that horribly wrong.
Well, I think they're starting to find their feet a little bit, but we were expecting them to jump in, sort of Aston Martin style a couple of years ago.
I absolutely did, yes.
Yeah, and so I think that maybe we went in a little bit too hot on them. This is his 4th season in Formula 1.
Yep.
You would expect that he should be driving well. Now, I think maybe you've gone a little bit strong on he is dominating, because he's nowhere near that. In the past, he's had some good qualifying results. Mm-hmm. In the past 2 races, he's gone backwards.
Yep.
This is the race where he held his own and he pushed forwards. And I thought this was his best race of the season so far.
Absolutely.
I thought he drove really well. But yeah, I wouldn't say he's absolutely dominating just yet. We've seen him go backwards throughout the race and then Dan move forward. Moving on to Dan, he was finished in 12th compared to his teammate who finished in 7th. Was 8th until Fernando got his penalty. Thoughts on Ricciardo's weekend?
He ran wide.
Typical Aussies in Australia.
He was on 10th.
Yep.
And the eruption from the crowd was huge.
Yep. Yeah, he made it through to
and it
Q3.
was awesome.
Yep.
But he ran wide, and then it was, for whatever reason, whether he was short-fueled, whether he had no whatever the reason was, that he just, we felt like
the message should have been
across. The message should have been, you've gone across, it's a time-deleted lap.
Yep.
Stop.
Back off.
But I feel like something contributed that, like he had not enough fuel, he had not enough energy recovery system in there to keep him going with that. So
yep.
There'll be a reason behind that, whether we'll find out or not, it doesn't matter. But knowing him and knowing the team and the people that are in that team, you should know that. So he's on wide, he's finished the lap, he was 10th, he's had it deleted. He's finished 13th, I think he finished. Is that where he finished? 12th. He's finished 12th from pretty much last on the grid. I think that's a pretty serviceable return.
Yeah, I thought the race result was better this time. I think it was a more consistent race result.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that the RB is the same pace as all the cars around them.
Yeah.
And so
there were points. I feel like there were points
really
there. Like 8th was very much there, I feel.
Yep. A decent qualifying, I think he probably is.
But hey, it happened. Look, had he have finished 16th, 15th, I think we'd be shaking our head going, no, that's not good enough.
Thoughts on the rumours going around that he's got 2 races before being sacked?
Don't know about that.
No, I don't think
I don't know about that.
I don't think there's anything in that. I think if we continue to see poor results, which we've seen poor results, but there's been a reason behind all of these poor results so far this year.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be giving excuses for drivers all the time, but there's been reasons behind it. Now, should Dan be better to stop these reasons from happening? Absolutely. And so he does. There is a few things he needs to clean up in his racing, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be at the moment. Yeah. Is it our love for Dan that makes us say these things? Possibly. I never quite know, but in terms of, I'd probably spend more time focusing on him than anyone else. And for him, you can see the reason as to why these things happen. Yeah. And I'm with you. To finish, to finish in 12th from the back of the grid was pretty decent. They also gave him a strange race strategy. Starting him on the softs was an interesting move.
Yeah. Australia, you're pretty much guaranteed a safety car in Australia.
Yeah, and so
9 out of 10 times.
And while that sort of worked okay for them, it meant that he was running on older tyres.
Yep. Deg was very high across the weekend. A lot of people were talking that up too. Yep. So I didn't mind the idea of getting rid of the softs early, because it was generally going to get hotter throughout the first period of the race.
Yep. Who have we? Oh, Hulkenberg once again. The Haas's 9th and 10th,
double points. Now I said this last week. It has to be. We have to just recognise that this call by Gene Haas to part ways with Steiner. I'm officially signing it off this week as tick.
Absolutely.
It is official. We said that last week. It's got to be consistent points.
Couldn't
We're back
agree
in.
more.
It's a double points. So now,
However,
I'm officially signing it off. Call of the season.
It's interesting, though, how much of this has got to do with that core. Because, I mean, this car has been developed from midway through last year. The car that we start the season with is a Gunther Steiner developed car all through last year. It's like they're just putting it together in the time that
but I think
the
it's
leadership changes happen.
It's other things that we're seeing.
And that's the thing.
That is it's the Magnussen supporting Hulk to give a space.
To create
a
move like
the
that,
double stack. It's the now, like, the drivers look like they are working in sync. Not that I don't know that they've never have, but it's certainly
they haven't necessarily worked together.
It's certainly not been publicly out there that these two are working really hard to push together for team. But you can see it now. It's really obvious across the race weekend. So I think it's little things like that we're seeing. We're not seeing, audacious calls across the radio. We're not seeing unusual strategy. We're not seeing stuff ups in the pit box. We're not seeing drivers put it in the wall. There is an air of, no, we're doing this and we're doing it properly and we've got a little bit more of an experienced
we saw a similar result from James Vowles going to Williams.
Yep.
They cleaned up things.
Yes.
Similar, I feel like we're seeing that with Fred Vasseur.
Yep.
Cleaned up things.
Just clean it up. Yep, absolutely.
And it feels like this is what we're seeing here,
yep.
is everything's cleaning up a little bit.
Because we love Gunther, and he was a great personality for the sport, but then I said that at the start of the year as well. Had his personality, had he become bigger than the team, that it wasn't Haas anymore, that we were tuning in every weekend to see Gunther and have a laugh at his comments and the way that he speaks and some of the things that he says. And you're right, we've cleaned that up and we've taken that almost, distraction as such away from the team. And now we're here to race. We're not here to publicise ourselves or to jump up and down and make a song and dance when we're on the pit wall. We're here to race. We're here to do this seriously. Let's do exactly that. And I think that's why. So, if you doubted the call, I don't think you can anymore.
I'm with you. Alex Albon in 11th. 1 point, 1 position off point.
Yep, no points.
No points.
No points. Exactly the same amount of points as Logan Sargent for the weekend.
Correct. Yep, but Logan Sargent would have finished
Logan didn't do anything.
He would have finished in 17th or 16th.
Which is also no points.
No points, yep. We've probably spoken enough about that, but yeah.
I'm very dark on that.
I can tell. Pierre Gasly, Alpine... One of the Alpines getting ahead of the Kick Saubers. Feels like they're currently the back markers, doesn't it?
It'd be...
Kick Sauber, Alpine.
Flip of the coin, it's both of them pretty much on par at the back.
Yep.
I think...
And neither in horrendous space. I think it was interesting, the team principal before the race weekend had sort of said, look, we're not as bad as what our results are showing.
Yeah.
Our car is better than what our results are showing. There's just been reasons, similar to Ricciardo's situation. There's been reasons as to why we've finished there.
So, I think Alpine are last because they've built a new car and you constantly don't understand it.
And it's taking time.
It's taking time.
Yep.
Sauber are last because they're just inflicting pain on themselves every race weekend. So I think at the moment, Sauber are probably slightly ahead of it. But I put a social media post up the other day. It's like 2 minutes, 38 seconds is the extended period of time in pit stop across the 3 weekends.
Yep.
And we saw it here in Australia, like the collective groan around the grandstand when they came in and they got it wrong again. And really just threw Valtteri's race away.
Yep. And so what we're talking about is that they've got this issue with a wheel nut cross-threading.
Yep. Every day of the week.
And it's pretty much every pit stop. It's funny how it's not more than one wheel at a pit stop, though. I find that strange. So it's not like every time, but it seems to be happening one wheel almost every pit stop. They did have a successful pit stop where it didn't happen. They've put some contingencies in place to try and mitigate the problem as best they can.
Just don't change that wheel in Japan.
And this was for Australia. So Peter Bauer had said, look, it's not something that can be fixed just at the moment, but we have got the fix on the way. In the meantime, we've got some mitigation techniques in place. And what it pretty much means is we're going to have to do some slow pit stops to make sure it doesn't happen, and it could still happen.
Yep.
So it's, like you said, it's pain that's going to be there. Their results don't show quite where They are.
Yeah.
And so I think if they can get that cleaned up, I think we'll probably see Alpine be the legitimate last team.
Yep.
However, the Alpine team has said, look, we are coming along with this. We don't expect to be in this horrible position for the entire season. We do expect that we're going to be picking up. So there is hope that everyone's going to be sort of flying together on all of this, which is going to put that pressure on Logan Sargent to not have his Williams last when Albon is being in amongst that pack as well.
Yep.
Let's move into race rankings. 3, 2, and 1. Thanks to All Signs. That's awesome. All Signs. We've got the most wonderful light box here, but if you've got any signage needs around Melbourne, Victoria, go and speak to Watsy at All Signs. That's AWE Signs. Who gets your points?
Who gets 3, 2, 1 for Australia? It just feels like forever ago.
Yeah, I'm going straight up with 3
Alright.
for Science.
Yep, good call. I'll mirror that. 3 for science.
3 for Science.
Yep.
I think 2 points has to go to Yuki.
Yeah.
I thought Yuki's don't. Are you hopping again?
No, I'm gonna go 2 to Oscar.
2 to Oscar.
Yeah.
I think a few people went 2 to Oscar.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 to Oscar.
Okay. So yeah, two to Yuki for me, 2 to Oscar for you.
Yep.
Last point.
Last point. I think last one. I'm gonna have to give it to Hulkenberg
Yeah.
for 9th. I really like. I could easily give it to Yuki. I mean, clearly he was driver of the day, but yeah, I think Oscar's performance at home. I mean, unless you're British, it's hard to win at home, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it almost doesn't happen. So yeah, and I just think
Unless
the
you're
Haas's...
Dutch, I guess.
Yeah, I guess unless you're Dutch, you win everywhere, don't you? I just think the Haas's are just, they're blowing me away at the moment with how they're leading the midfield.
I'm going to see on that one.
Yep.
I'm going to give a point to Hulk as well.
Yeah, and he's doing a very good job.
He is, yeah. He's doing...
So's K-Mag at the moment too. Yeah, both doing a good job. 104 seconds off the lead, but...
K-Mag less so.
Yeah, but no, Hulk's doing a great job.
Dud of the day.
Dud of the day! Dud of the day. Dud of the day.
Dud of the weekend?
Dud of the weekend. I mean, the easy one would have to be... The easy one would have to be Sauber, right?
For not being able to fix up
For
there.
not being able to fix up their wheel nut. I'm going to give it to the boys on the social media pages.
Oh, that's you.
It's not me.
Oh.
It's not me. I won't name who because, like, fellow, podcasters and Instagram and stuff like that.
Okay.
But the two personalities that posted social media of George Russell in the urinals across the race weekend just did not read the room on that one and have come under all sorts of heavy fire.
See, I went looking for it. I couldn't find any of this fire.
I found it, and I feel like such
shipmates.
a poor,
shipmates.
such
and
a
they're
poor,
very funny.
So they are great, but that's a poor error of judgment, and I think it's things like that are why fans and access and all stuff like that is starting just to be clamped down, and I didn't like it. It doesn't really have a place in sport. It's not somewhere that you should be, doing things like that for. So I think I'm going to have to give it to them because I saw it and I just thought, and it's not really funny. It's not really worth it. I think it's such an avid fan of the sport. It doesn't have a place in F1. Things like that. It really doesn't. So.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to have to give it to them.
I'm going to have to go with the penalty to Alonso.
Yeah.
If we're penalising stewards, and this is Johnny Herbert, and I've great respect for Johnny Herbert, but if we're penalising drivers for racecraft, we're in a world of pain.
Yeah. Johnny Herbert and Fernando have a not terrific relationship, do they?
Which cannot possibly come into the...
No, but I feel like a little part
100%,
of it.
100%.
He's just going, stuff here.
Yeah, but it's just... for me, it's just, come on.
Yeah.
This is racing at its core.
Yep.
And I think if George makes a silly mistake, how's that Alonso's fault?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I think we're going down a very dangerous path. It was interesting to see, so in the news, which we're going to talk about in a moment,
Yep.
F1 or FOM or Liberty Media or whoever the crew is has taken over the MotoGP.
Yes.
And it's reading some of the comments around
$4
the MotoGP guys
payout.
saying, oh, that's all well and good, but don't turn us into what you've turned F1 into. And
Yeah.
I think there is a little bit of a...
There's a bit of anxiety around that.
There is a bit
from
of anxiety
fans.
around that, which I didn't necessarily knew that existed as strongly in terms of, like, people have always got beefs with management.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But
Yeah.
I didn't realise that people had such issues with things like DRS and all those sorts of things and push to pass. And I'm reading recently that Formula One's bought in, or looking to bring in push to pass
I feel
again.
like it's as good as on the way.
And I feel like I'm not sure they're really getting what these sports are about.
Yep.
And I think that ruling is that's not on Formula One. That's on FIA. But I'm really lost as to, are we really going to bring racecraft out of this sport when that's exactly what we're crying out for?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, for me, date of the day is that, and you need to be careful about what's going on.
I think that's
I
why...
understand safety,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's why WEC is becoming such a more attractive race brand for your real diehards.
Yeah.
It really is. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Look, I can understand.
A 10-hour race can be as enthralling as a 2-hour
I
race.
can,
It
I
really
can understand that 100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's never going to take over
No.
because it just hasn't, like,
There's
this
no
day and age,
gimmicks.
it's too long.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's
it's
no gimmicks with WEC.
yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people like about it too. Is just there's nothing fancy. It's just it's good hard racing in top machinery, and it's nothing more.
Yep.
It's literally nothing more than that. So yeah, I mean, don't know. I can understand MotoGP angst. That are we going to start seeing things like we see in Formula E, like the little go wide and you get a bit of extra power boost energy, or the fan boost where you vote for your favourite driver and they get a bit more battery, and just stupid crap like that.
F1.5.
F1.5. Well, we've got 2 weeks to go, haven't we?
I think you can bring it in.
No, we got 2 weeks to go. So
You're very stubborn.
I'm very stubborn. At the moment, what are we going to say? You could almost. I think we could definitely lock in. I think we could get pretty close to locking in Alpine, Sauber, Williams, RB, and maybe Haas.
What do you mean, maybe?
Maybe Haas.
Why maybe?
Well, because if they're going to be 9th and 10th every week, then you probably can't have them. If that's where they're going to be.
They're only 9th and 10th if someone messes up.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. If they're going to be there every week,
well,
then they're going to win, aren't they? So we need to have that air of mystery around it too. So
I think you're fairly safe. Yuki Tsunoda was ahead of them.
you could maybe put Stroll in there, but then you could also maybe put Lewis in there. I don't know. I don't know.
At least you come around to the fact that there's a top 5 and the bottom 5.
There's definitely a top 5. Look, it's definitely not going to be Red Bull. It's not going to be Ferrari, and it's not going to be McLaren. So they're officially not going to be part of it this year. I think officially.
Yep.
Mercedes, meh, I don't know.
It can't be Mercedes because
really
they will win
be.
it by default.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
So and then
as
Aston,
much as they almost deserve to be there.
Aston, I don't know. You're right. They're probably the yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We've got 2 more weeks. Don't rush good things. Don't rush good things.
Fantasy.
I'm excited for fantasy this
Dr.
week. Thanks
Auto
to Chris
Art.
at Dr. Auto Art.
I tell you, one thing I like about sitting in this position in the
Tell me about
headquarters.
your prints while I find all the great things we need to talk about.
I get to look at the prints while I'm looking at them.
Yep.
So yeah, we've got the Fernando Alonso. What do you call that? The arm spread, standing on the Renault, one leg in the air.
Yep.
Magnificent.
That's the iconic pose.
Yeah, and then I've got the Ricardo.
I think that was Japan, actually.
The Monaco, I think it's the Monaco redemption photo of Ricardo with his hand on his heart. And it's like, yes, I've finally done
I
it.
like it. Yep. No, very good. Thanks to Chris at Dr. Auto Art. Check out his Facebook, Redbubble, Instagram, all those great things. And our top 3 finishes from this year, get to take home one of those incredible prints of your choosing.
Yeah, you
driver
get to choose.
of your choice.
Yep.
And get around Chris. And if you're in the market for a helmet, sign up to his newsletter as well. Discounts along the way. Lots of great things. But thank you, Chris, for being an incredible sponsor of the show again. Right, let's dive into this week. You had a great week.
Thank you.
Which makes me sick to say that. but you had a great week. You were the third highest scorer for Australia.
Look at me go.
So let's go through the top scorers for Australia, and then we'll go through the top 10. So top scoring for Australia, red seats. No name for that one, just 2 dashes. So no idea who red seats are.
Seats.
Red seats, no name.
I think it's my old man, actually.
All right, well, there you go. Red seats are 280 points.
I think it's, yeah.
Yep, Scarlet Forever by Chloe Anderson, 274 points. You were third best for the weekend, 266. Ricky Bobby Racing from Dean Holt, 251. And Side Pod Wars from Gavin Fenner on 248. So they are the top 5 point scorers for Australia. Let's have a look at ourselves for the race weekend. I'll start with me. I'm in 6th position, so up 2 from last week. 235 points. I had Charles on the double for 76. Alex 4. Lance Stroll. Oh, that pains me. But I traded Dan on Saturday for Stroll after pre-qualifying.
Good move, though.
He just wasn't looking good, and it is a good move. 16 points for Stroll, 11 for Yuki, and 4 to Zhou. The Red Bull with 32 and the Ferrari with a whopping 92. So, yeah, 20 points gone amiss there. With Max, which hurt, and you are up in 8th place. You had a monster weekend. You've done a very good job. And we belong in the top 10. I think as long as it's in that order, me above you, I'll be pretty happy with that. 266 points for you. You had 46 for Sainz, 8 for Dan. You had the double on Charles, Yuki for 11, and Fernando with 9. That penalty hurt you a little bit. 92 for the Ferraris. And the RBs finally come good for you this week. 24 points for the RBs. So nicely done by you. And the top 10 are looking like this. I was a little bit thrown away because I went through some teams and I saw some people use their chips as well throughout the race weekend, like those ultimate ones or those sort of ones, and I just thought, it's too early to pull the trigger on those. So, Clubhouse leader, Dean Holt, 698 points. In second place is Chris Holt. Related? Maybe. Minardi Cash App RB on 671. Christian Alvarez. Sorry, Christian, if I got that horribly wrong.
You did.
I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your Allo Bargini Romp F1. 666. Andrew Taylor in 4th with Tails I Win on 656. Chloe Anderson with Scarlet Forever 642. Myself in 6th place with 640. Red Seats with 628. Your good self on 620. Fariz Hafizi with Patronus RT on 606, and Danielson Musila, Bring Back Kailami GP with 598 points. So there you go. I feel like I butchered quite a few of those names.
Absolutely.
Just off the top of my head too. Now, I just want to see if I can find it too. I'm just going to go all the way down the bottom because I saw someone who had an absolute horror show of a race weekend. An absolute horror show of a race weekend because they had, let me see if I can find it.
I might have some news on this.
Okay, because what they had was, they had Max, I have to see if I can find it. They had Max, they also had Sargent, and then they also had Lewis and the Mercedes, and they had George. So the 3 possible DNFs and the one driver that wasn't racing, they had them in their team, and it was an absolute just not existent. I can't seem to find it, but I tell you what I do want to do.
I think there's some people going for the lowest score possible.
Yeah, there are some people. What I do want to do is I want to highlight our good friend Shane Freer, who we love Shane. And he loves F1, and he's a huge fan of the podcast. But he's sitting down this weekend in Australia for a lonely 55th place, so dead last.
He's not very good at this.
He's not, and I'll highlight how poor he is. Oscar, 21 points. Tick. Very nice. Dan, 8. Tick. That's all right. Valtteri, 2. Whatever. 2. He had the RB, so it came good for everyone at 24 points. That's fine. But what he had Max with the double, which then turned into minus 20, because obviously saving grace there, he was on pole with the 10. He then had Logan Sargent left in his team, so totally inactive, so no points, and he had the Mercedes as his constructor, minus 17. So he scored a total of 18 points for the race round. 18 points.
And it doesn't sound like he was trying to do
It doesn't
that.
sound like he was trying to do that either. Actually sounds like he was trying to do a reasonably good job. And I'll tell you one other thing that caught my eye with fantasy. Who do you think the lowest 2 ranked drivers are currently? The bottom 3 ranked drivers in fantasy.
I couldn't tell you.
So-
is it Russell because of DNF? No, who else is DNF'd?
So the absolute bottom ranked driver is Gasly
Really?
for 7.4 million, owned by 24% of the team. That'll bring you home -9 points for the year.
Wow.
-9. The second lowest ranked is
I think I actually started with him.
Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, yeah, of course.
19 million, owned by 16% of teams. He brings you -1 points for the year. And then, other than that, you've got Valtteri at 5.9 million, owned by 24% of the team. And for the whole year, he's brought you a single point.
Wow, way.
So if you own Pierre Gasly, man, today is the day to jump off.
No, well, you've stuck with me this long.
Yeah,
Hang in there.
Yikes. So -9 and -1 for Lewis. That's 19 million for 1 less point. And then your top 4 are Charles is your number 1 ranked driver, 97 points. Sergio, your man, is your second highest ranked driver on 84.
Is Charles... He was value for money too, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
He's gone up a million. You got Carlos is third highest with 82 points, and Max is the 4th highest ranking, with 71. So yeah, who's higher, Oscar or Orlando? Do you feel?
In terms of points?
Yep.
Oh, probably Oscar.
Yeah, he is. He's on 54 points. It cost you 5 million less. So, as well, the big surprise packet is K-Mag, 22 points for the year, and he's $7.7 million. So. That's value for money there. Anyway, that is fantasy for this week.
Very good. News. So, off the top, FOM, Liberty Media, has picked up what is it called? GP?
Yep,
MotoGP.
So they've had the buyout of MotoGP.
Yep.
Which has come to the tune of $4 billion. And I think it's a 90. I want to say 91%. Don't quote me on that percentage, but it's a 91% ownership. So they don't. I want to say they don't own all of it. That's a pretty hefty percentage to own. So that's generally they've signed the deal with Dorna, and they've taken a majority stake, which is about 90% ownership for MotoGP. So that's pretty huge news coming out of that, and their sort of work into motorsport in general, and that's a huge buyout as well. So that's huge. Push to pass. Let's talk about push to pass, because this was a little bit of news that popped up the other day, and a lot of people thought it was like in
April
Fool's sort of territory, but no, this was prior to April 1. So. Push to pass regulation. So there has been a draft of the 2026 regulations put out, and it's totally accessible to you and I. So you can jump on the FIA page, you can have a look at the draft copy, you can download it, and you can have a read of it as well. So it is Article 5.147, and it reads as this. The driver maximum power demand cannot be increased during any full throttle period except when in overtake mode, as specified in the appendix to the regulation, is selected by the driver. So it's that last little part there that says when it is selected by the driver. So you're not allowed to, I guess, wirelessly, for a better word, up your engine mode from the garage or from in-house back in Milton Keynes or working or wherever, but you can actually select it as your driver, so that gives you nothing more than an indication that there is going to be a push to pass coming for F1, which is going to give you a max power outlet on full throttle, but any other time on full throttle your engine map is pretty well locked in, and you're not going to be able to alter that. So I mean, for me, if that is going to stay in the regulation, then that is as good as it's locked in. That we are about to be announced with push to pass for 2026. What are your thoughts on it?
We sort of discussed about. I think the idea is it's to break up DRS trains,
because this is another sort of IndyCar innovation that we have.
Yeah, and we had it. We've had something similar in the past.
Yep.
Look,
Which is your KERS, your kinetic energy recovery system, which
Yeah.
played a part in that. I
Yep.
think the thing that I feel like we're going to go, and I really do feel like it's going to mirror IndyCar, where you're going to have your 60 seconds of it. I mean, that's sort of... IndyCar's different, where it's capped at 60 seconds. So that's all you've got.
60 seconds across...
60 across a race.
Yep.
So you have to use it strategically. You
Yep.
can either use it sporadically at a
Yep.
couple of seconds a lap to defend an overtake. You can deploy it all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like obviously you're only going to use it down the straight. You're not going to use it mid-corner or anything like that. You might use it exiting a corner every now and then if you feel like, you know, there's a braking zone
Yep.
that you're particularly vulnerable at. If it's going to work in the same relation to like KERS did, it's going to be something that you are going to have to earn across a lap, and then you've got it there, you know, at your fingertips to deploy as you please. So if you're going to do heavy braking to build your KERS, and then you're going to be able to deploy it like we used to see, that's fine. Whether or not it's going to be like the IndyCar where you've capped it at 60 seconds, and then that's what you've got for the race.
Yep.
I don't know.
I worry about gimmicks trying to fix gimmicks.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like, once again, like you just, well, where does it ever finish? Where does it ever finish? But I can also, like, I don't mind the idea of a certain amount of time to have it. I'd probably have a little bit more than 60 seconds, but in saying that, I haven't really looked at how much you potentially need it. How much does 60 seconds get you?
Well,
How
I mean,
long do you
like,
spend on straights throughout a race?
Well, that's it. Like, if you look at Australia, you'd be 3 seconds down the straight, maybe.
Yep.
That's the main straight. So,
Yep.
you know, if you've got 60 seconds, then that's going to do you just on half the race to
Yep.
be able to deploy it.
Which I'm sort of okay with, because that does open up this whole idea of...
You're not going to have it all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's got access to DRS if you're just within that second, and as soon as those trains start.
Yep.
So there's an element of me like, oh, you know what? I don't mind that idea. You just want to have it closely monitored in terms of how it's introduced and how often drivers can use it. We just don't want a line of drivers all using it at the same time, because it just means that it's just they're using it all at the same time.
And that's where I feel like it's either it's got to be capped, or you're going to have to earn it, or you're going to start with none.
Yeah, I don't like...
Build your back
I mean, Formula E went to the point where you could drive through a certain zone to earn it. Or people could vote to give you extra ones and all that sort of stuff. And that's got to be like well and truly gone. I don't think they're going down that sort of path. So,
no.
Look, I don't mind it. Gimmicks to fix gimmicks worries me a little bit, but...
If it's going to bring the racing closer together, which is what we're crying out for...
I want everyone
it out of the team's hands.
I want everyone to, absolutely. I like the driver doing it.
Yep.
I want to be able to see how much is used.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that to be a secret.
Yep.
I want to see how much is used.
And I think that'd be helpful to know, where you can sort of be like, "Ooh, you've got none left."
Yep.
Like it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know.
It's.
I think we're going to see it. So.
I think so too, and I don't know if we need to be afraid of it. I don't want it to be like a boost button like you'd see on a game.
I wonder if we'll
90s.
have a trial in, like, let's say 2025. If we'll get to, are we going to see it deployed in sprints in 2025 just to see what it looks like? That wouldn't surprise me. Or let's say we got 4 rounds to go and the championship's over. Okay, well, it's not really going to impact too much. Let's go and give it a crack and see if it works. If we do need a trial period in 25, I'd be happy to see it in sprints. That's fine. Like, in there, if you want to trial it, I think that's where it probably belongs, to be honest. But I wouldn't want to see it across the weekend. You need to trial it before you bring it in. So that would make perfect sense to me.
I'm not sure sprints are exactly where you want it for, though. You want it for that long race strategy where you work your way into it. You're probably trying to get the overtake done before you go to it. And then, so you're trying to set up the overtake, you're pulling it off. You go try and set up your next overtake, and then you try and pulling it off. It's an interesting one. I'm not completely against it, but it's one to be a little bit interested in. Any other news?
No, it's sort of. I think
Toto Wolff was not going to be going to Japan.
Yeah, I heard that he is now.
He's changed his mind.
Yep.
It turns out that the team's not going very well.
So better be there.
And so you better be there. Thoughts on that?
6.5 doesn't faze me.
I trust my team. We should be able to perform whether I'm there or not.
And
now I've decided that we need to be there because I don't trust my team.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that to it. It's a little bit like the Logan Sargent signing as a Williams driver. we're very happy with the way Logan's going, but we're not happy enough for him to lead the team by himself.
Right.
I think it just goes to show where that team's at the moment is we're not quite there. Japan.
Oh,
how excited are you?
very excited. I love Japan so much. So much.
I would... it's a hard one to get tickets to, but I would love to get to this race.
Yep.
It's one of those ones that if you ever get the opportunity, go and see Suzuka, because I think the crowd alone is worth going to watch. But it's a great one.
Yep.
Also helps us a 3 p.m. race
fantastic.
on our holidays. Are we going to watch together?
I'm away.
What
I know.
are you doing?
I know.
Where are you?
We're at the beach on the weekend, which I'm very unhappy.
Are you going to be watching from the beach?
Yeah, I hope so.
You haven't actually considered this yet, have
I
you?
hope so. No, I have considered it. It's been on my mind for the last 3 days. So, yeah.
It's we spend our whole lives crying out for daytime races, don't we?
I know, we do.
And then you get them, and you're like, holy crap, I've got to suspend everything in my life so I get to watch.
I know, and that's...
And that's the challenge. Like, there's never anything on at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday night in our lives.
And it's
so you're always home to watch.
Your family.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Whereas it's it becomes a little more challenging when we get prime time watching. But yeah, anyway, it'll be one looking forward to it. What are you expecting to see?
I'm expecting to see Max bounce back hugely.
Yeah, I think the track's going to suit the Red Bull quite nicely.
I think so too, and I actually think it might suit the Astons quite well as well.
I think we'll see Mercedes continue to struggle because all those high-speed corners. It hates the high-speed corners.
I think it's gonna quite suit the Aston quite well. So I expect the Astons to be right up there.
I think McLaren will be strong.
I think so too.
And Ferrari has obviously shown that they've got some strength. So yeah, well, we can always hope for a strong
Sainz
race
ahead
weekend.
Of Leclerc?
I'm
going to say yes.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
But I don't think there'll be much in it. I don't
No.
think there'll be a huge amount.
No.
One of the things that I'm hoping to see, so that's what I'm expecting to see. I'm hoping to see, and Fred Vasseur sort of backed this up a little bit, is I've seen quite a lot. If we can put a team under pressure, you get a different sort of team. And my mum attended the race weekend, and she fell in love with all the drivers. And she said, "Oh, how lovely is Max?" And my first comment to her was, Max is wonderful with maturity from where he was, that's just natural, but winning suits Max.
Yeah.
Put Max under that pressure and we might see a different Max. And we might see that bit more prickly character come back out. I want to see that Max because I want to see him being put back under pressure. And I think if we put Red Bull under some pressure, and Fred Vasseur said that, if you can put a team under pressure, all of a sudden you've got to stretch them to their limits a little bit more and you see more cracks. And so I'm hoping to see a pressure applied.
Yeah.
I don't mind if it's a Red Bull win, that's fine, but as long as there's pressure being placed on there, because I think that overall applied pressure is going to allow the teams to sort of challenge them a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so, hoping to see a little bit of that, but it'll be one to get ready for. I did see there was an earthquake in the area and potential tsunami warnings, but not at the track, the tsunami, but...
a bit of wet weather wouldn't hurt anyone.
Well, yeah, except for we get typhoons over there, so as long as it's not typhoon wet weather. But yeah, because it is at a different time of year. Usually wait until September, October for the Suzuka, so yeah, looking forward to seeing a little bit of that as well. Anything else?
That's it.
Well, I don't think, due to such a late recording, I don't know if we're going to get to our fan frenzy, but what we'll do is we'll delay a few of those across to next week, because when are you back from the beach?
I'm going to say Sunday morning.
Sunday morning?
So
you will be
race
in town.
Might be on, yeah. It's like a 2.5 hour drive, so
like
I say morning, like if I leave at 10 and 12.
3 o'clock start. But anyway, so yeah, we'll try and record nice and early next week, and we'll do an extra long fan frenzy and incorporate a few of the extra questions in there.
Love it.
But until then, enjoy your racing, and we'll speak to you again soon. Goodbye now.